Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson, and I am excited today to bring to you Darrin Campbell. His restaurant is La Papagayo in Encinitas, California. I may not have said that exactly right, but just outside of San Diego, I believe. Hey, Darrin, and welcome to the show.
How's it going, Jeff? Thanks so much for having me, man.
Hey, did I get that right, or are you just outside of San Diego?
Yeah, you were close. It's La Papagayo, and we are in Encinitas, California, which is kind of a north territory of San Diego County.
Yeah, I did put the Hispanic twist to it, didn't I? With, La Papagayo. It's La Papagayo, ladies and gentlemen.
You got close.
So anyway, thank you so much for being here, and I apologize for that. That's my Hispanic spouse coming through. You know, everything's La or L.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. But I'm glad to have you, Darrin, and I'd love for you to just kind of start out, if you would, and tell us a little bit about the restaurant and the business and kind of how it started and the story behind it.
Yeah. So thanks again, by the way, for having me, giving me this opportunity. It's a pleasure. So let's see, where can I start? Encinitas, California is kind of a small beach community in North San Diego County, as I mentioned, and it's a small population. We've got a little tiny downtown area, and this restaurant, La Papagayo, has been in business for going on 20 years. We've been doing live music nightly since the day we opened, and over the past 2 decades, it's grown in size from starting out to be about a 1,200 square foot little breakfast lunch spot to the 3,800 square foot spot with about 2,000 square feet of patio space that it is now, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. Still sticking to the live music nightly from 7 to 10. And it's kind of become a little institution. My dad and I purchased the restaurant going on about 7 years ago. And we've been operating it as a single location we operated it as a single location for about 2.5 or 3 years, and then ended up purchasing a couple more restaurants in the interim, and opening up a second location in Carlsbad, California, which is about 20 minutes north of the original location. And yeah, it's been a great time, and you can imagine some ups and downs working with family, but I think for the most part, we've been able to work things out nicely, and here we are.
That's awesome. I mean, only 7 years in, and you built a successful restaurant and been able to actually take La Papagayo to a second location down in Carlsbad. For those of you who didn't catch that and you're in the area, make sure that you check it out. Are you live music in both locations 7 nights a week?
Yeah, every night at both spots. And, we just starting to do like a brunch music type of thing. So on Saturday and Sundays, we'd have 2 shows, one from 11 to 2 for the brunch crowd, and then one from 7 to 10 for the dinner crowd. So.
Wow, that is awesome. That makes me wish I was nearby, because my wife and I, we love to go out and we love music, and we like to have a beer and love to have good food. So yeah. It sounds like you got the destination for us right there. Hey,
yes, sir. Yeah, it makes it fun. Even just be going to work. When I go to work and I get to hang out at the bar and listen to live music every night, it doesn't make it too shabby.
No. You guys have done great, and we're just happy to have you on today, and happy to be able to kind of bring your story to our audience. And for those that are in and around your area, we hope that, again, if you haven't had the opportunity to check them out, be sure that you do. Go to see Darrin and his team at one of those 2 locations.
Yes, sir.
And I want to kind of back up a little bit and take you back a ways to when you purchased this particular institution, as you called it. You
Sure.
said it was about 20 years old. You've had it about 7 years. And
Yeah.
what drew you into that opportunity? Was it for sale, or did you just go chase it down and find a way to get it, or kind of how did that work?
Yeah. So my dad and I, originally out of college, I was in real estate with him. He was a developer for 25 or so years, and I was working for an investor out of college. And eventually split off, started doing my own thing with him, kind of doing the same thing I was doing. We were flipping homes and finding opportunities and in real estate, and realizing that at the time it was working out well, but big picture, long term, it didn't seem like something that I was going to be fully interested in. So my dad and I had always talked about restaurants and bars growing up, something that, I'd probably consider ourselves foodies before it was on trend to be a foodie, type of thing. And eventually we kind of came up with the idea, why don't we start looking right now, find something to buy and see what happens. Let's run it with all the ideas we've been talking about over the last 20 years and see what happens. And so we looked, and I almost did that full time for a year and a half. We were in and out of escrow with 3 or 4 different locations around Southern California. Eventually, within the brokerage industry, I found somebody who knew about the Papagayo location, and I jumped on it. I went there, took a look at it when I knew it was for sale, sat down, had dinner with my then girlfriend, and I fell in love with the spot. It was exactly what we were looking for. And to be honest, it almost set up exactly how I identified real estate back in the day when I was flipping homes, trying to look for the best location, but the most tired house, and see if you could put some money into it and revamp it and ultimately resell it. So it kind of had a little bit of that, where it had a really good history. It had a big, strong local following. But the current owner was older, and he was ready to move on. And you could kind of start seeing that in the restaurant and how it was being operated. So I knew we had a good opportunity. And we jumped on it, and we were able to work out a good deal with the landlord and the then owner. And yeah, it's been 6.5 years of almost 7 years of a wild ride. Learned a lot, but yeah, it's been fun.
And tell me a little about when you first got in. I mean, having not been in the restaurant space, although you had a love for it all those years. When you got started, and I guess were you in the, well, it was already open, so you didn't have to get it opened up.
Right.
I don't suppose.
Right.
What were some of your first hurdles or challenges that you kind of ran into that maybe you weren't expecting? Was there anything
Yeah, so something I was expecting out the gate, I was 27 years old when we bought the restaurant, and knowing I had a lot of tenured employees that were 15, 20 years my senior, that I needed to make sure I was coming in there and earning their respect first and foremost. And so the first thing I did was I was working out the gate right alongside of them. So I was taking tables as a server. I was doing some hosting at the host stand. I did a couple nights of bartending. I even worked on the line for a little while in the kitchen, which, those guys were very happy to see me leave that location. And I got to tell you, if I would have stayed any longer back there, I don't think we'd be talking right now. But I think doing that was the most important thing I could have done. Making sure that I was on the ground level with them, shoulder to shoulder, learning not only the restaurant industry as a whole with that location, but also learning the restaurant itself, understanding what the locals were looking for, and just kind of immersing myself in that was helped me get to the point where I was able to talk to them about making some changes, doing some things aesthetically, staffing some things differently, doing some things training wise with the staff, making sure that they were as supported as possible to be giving the best service as possible. And just making sure that the atmosphere was one that people wanted to come to work every day. And that was able to get me, really by doing that, it was able to get me to that point as soon as possible. So I think that was the number one challenge out the gate. Once that was done, I got to be honest, I think with my lack of experience, I don't know if anything really surprised me, because I wasn't under any sort of false idea of what to expect. or what I thought was to be expected. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Where going in the way that I did, it was kind of like, you know, I didn't have any built-in biases. I didn't have any ideas of what it should look like. And it was kind of just, hey, this is your baby now. This is all I did for 70 or 80 hours a week for a good 3 or 4 years. And it was just do your best with what you got. You know, I was in a lucky enough position where the clientele were coming in. And so now it was not, what can we do to get people in? It was, what do I need to do to make sure these people are going to be coming back? And it was just identifying those issues. You know, I've got a business degree from the University of San Diego, so I was able to call on that and rely on that a little bit, because at some point there are some nuts and bolts of businesses that you just need to be able to do properly. And so getting those in place, getting the right percentages in place, and then just having fun with it. You know, at the end of the day, you know, you're serving food and drinks to people, and you get to listen to live music on the beach. So, you know, at some point, have fun with it. And that's what we did.
That's a dream come true for a lot of people, my friend. That is
exactly. So keeping it in perspective was really important too. I didn't want to get, you know, too bogged down with the day to day and you know, lose sight of how fun it is to be able to do what I am doing.
That's awesome. It definitely, you created a picture already for those that are listening of being on the beach, listening to music, having a drink, enjoying some great meals and times with friends and family. That's an amazing picture, and sounds like a great environment, a great place to be. So did you have to, when you came in, I'm just curious, did you make menu changes and things like that based on, you know, kind of immersing yourself in the business? Did you know, what kind of changes did you make? Maybe I should ask that question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I got asked that. So I'll back up a little bit. During the transition, when we were negotiating the deal, part of the deal in the sell was the current owner had to stay on for 60 days and basically be my mentor. Kind of showed me the ropes, helped me understand the nuts and bolts of the business, get me on board with all the vendors, get me on board with the chef, make sure all of those relationships are built properly and all that. So part in that 60-day period, his name was Francois. Francois and I would be together in the restaurant almost every day. And so we'd see a lot of the locals. And I would say 90% of the time it was, please don't touch the menu. Please don't touch the cocktail list. Please don't mess with the sangria. Please don't mess with the Kahlua pork. Everybody had their favorites. And so as I was learning that and becoming more involved with the menu and the creation side of it, you know, for sure, for the first 2 or 3 months, as I was going through that transition phase, I didn't touch anything.
Yeah.
There was no changes. There was no nothing. I did not want to rock the boat. You know, don't break something that isn't, or don't fix anything that isn't broken, or whatever that saying is. 100% that's exactly what I did. So I got confident. I got comfortable with the menu, with the people, with what the community wanted, what they didn't want. I started running product mixes, which you kind of you're able to go back as far as you want with your point of sale system and figure out how many times you've moved your filet mignon, how many times you've moved your rack of ribs, and then be able to kind of figure out, what are my dogs? What's not moving on the menu? What does really well? Where am I at pricing wise? Where am I at community wise? And so with all of that information, slowly, I mean, as slowly as you can possibly imagine, I started introducing small specials. We would do some entrees every couple weeks. I would do some new entrees, and I would introduce them just as weekend specials. I'd have the staff push them, and then I would be there to gauge the response from the customer. And if they did well for multiple weeks at a time, I would then take a look at that product mix, as I mentioned, figure out what wasn't moving, and then I would rotate that. And now look, at times I moved some things that there was a little bit of pushback from the area, from my local community. But as they began to trust me more and more, and my chef that I was working with at the time, those complaints and those worries started to dwindle as time went on. And so eventually, as much as you want to keep those items on the menu and make sure people understand what they're going to be getting every time they come in and having that consistency, there's a huge argument to be made on that side of it. But at the same time, on the flip of the coin, you also want to make sure that you're not getting stale, and you need to be keeping up with new trends, new ideas, new different products that people are pushing out there, in order to keep it fresh and lively and seasonal and all those types of things. And so marrying those two takes a commitment from ownership. It takes a pretty concerted effort. But if you're able to hit that marrying of introducing new items, but also staying true to what the concept is and what brings the people back every time, then you've got a great recipe for success. And I think that's exactly what I try to do.
Yeah, that was beautifully stated. And, a great piece of advice for people out there who are getting into a new restaurant. I mean, there's a lot of lessons here, and lots of interesting conversation points, between those who prefer to start their own restaurant as opposed to going in and buying a current restaurant.
Sure.
There's pros and cons to each, but I love the way you did it, and to have that discipline that at a young age, which frankly, 27 is a young age, and to have that dedication and commitment, and again the patience to find a way to keep it working, is a testament to you guys' success in the business, or your success in the business. From a challenges standpoint, let me pull back up to the future a little bit, and talk about staffing, because it's a major hurdle for every restaurant owner and pretty much every business around the country. Sure. Are you guys having any challenges on that side, or have you found a way to kind of get around that?
Yeah, so 100%. There's no doubt. I was just having this conversation with my dad yesterday, actually. I would say in the 7 years I've been in this game, this last week was the most challenging week we've been met with. I've been dealing with just an astronomical amount of issues, not only on top of how difficult it is just to run a restaurant in the first place, but when you throw everything else that we have going on into that fire, it's been one thing after the other. And so I've really focused on dealing with the fires as they come up, whatever is most important being number one, and working down the list. I've got a good support team with my management crew. I've got a general manager that works side by side with me at both of the little Papagayo locations. Mm-hmm. They've been integral in seeing the way through these fires. And to be honest, I would say 90% of our problems right now are finding back of the house, heart of house staff members. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that the unemployment benefits are as high as they've been. I know we've gotten multiple different stimuluses in California specifically. Right. And when you're talking about these hourly workers that are doing anywhere from 15 to 18 bucks an hour, and you compare that to what they were getting by just sitting at home, it's hard to get those people motivated to get back out. And when you talk about at the scale that California has to get back up to, the amount of people that have to get back to work, and those percentages. And then when you talk about how busy the restaurants are and everybody wanting to get back out there, I'm about as busy as I've ever been with customers. And so I need as many staff members as I've ever needed right now. Right. And it's as difficult as it's ever been to find them. And so what that's happening is it's artificially pushing up my hourly wages in the back of the house. So my line cooks, I'll give you an example, typically pre-pandemic, were anywhere from 16 to 18 bucks an hour. Mm-hmm. And right now, I can't get somebody in for an interview for less than 19 bucks an hour. Wow. And so I'm going from 15 to 18 to where now I'm pushing 19 to 22 bucks an hour for my line cooks. And they won't even walk in the door to talk to you unless you're in that range. And so, and then you talk about the supply side of it. Shellfish and seafood especially are through the roof right now. I know last month my food costs were in that 45 to 50% range. And I'm trying not to touch my numbers to pass it along to the consumer. But I know a lot of restaurants are getting creative, adding the 3 or 4% surcharges onto their bills. I've never been a fan of that, and I'm just starting to have to get into the realm of figuring out what that next move is. If I start pulling some things off of the menu in order to get us through this phase, or if that's just passing the buck along to the consumer and saying, look guys, this is it. If you want to buy it, I'm all for it. I want to provide it, but at some point it's not sustainable to be eating a 40% labor and 50% food cost. As you can imagine, those types of numbers with already slim margins are going to be losers, and I won't be able to stay in business. I won't be able to employ over 100 people per location, and so finding that balance right now is definitely difficult and my number one concern. And so hopefully we can get some relief, getting more employees back to be motivated to work again, which I think we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel with that. Hopefully that brings wages back down into a controllable range. And then hopefully the supply side can continue to get better and better as we ramp up more and more. I'm trying to ignore the Delta news as much as possible, but
Right.
It seems like every day it's starting to pick up more steam. And so I'm trying to hold on tight, man. And I'm trying to keep the light, I'm trying to stay positive. But it's tough, man. It's a difficult time.
Yeah, it's really challenging, and especially when you got so much demand. I mean, that's what you're always after when you start a business. You want people to want to be there, and you want that demand to be strong. And today, successful restaurants like you guys have the demand rolling in. You just have trouble with capacity because you just don't have the capability to serve and service everyone as you'd like, or you bite the bullet and you overpay. And
right.
It's that's a strategy. Another strategy I've talked with a lot of owners about is they've reduced hours, or maybe cut out a Monday, or cut back on that just to try to give their staff a break and to ease the pressure just a little bit. But if you're trying to grow a business, you don't really want to do that. You want to go forward, not backwards.
I know. I was doing the math. Actually, that same idea. I was looking at closing down on Mondays and trying to reduce hours where I could. And that puts, I think it was somewhere in the vicinity of $500,000 hit to the bottom line, not the bottom line, the top line in net sales. And it's hard to just say no to that. It provides, for some people in this industry, that extra day is going to be a make or break on whether or not they work for the restaurant. Where they're going right now, they want to try to get the people that are willing to work. They want to try to get as many hours as possible. Right. And by cutting one full shift for the whole restaurant, actually, excuse me, that'd be 4 full shifts the way that I operate, because I'm open from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's 4 full shifts. And that could be the difference on retaining a line cook or losing them. And so, there's a lot to be said about it. Some restaurants can pull that off. The Papagayo has never been one to do that. I'm trying to avoid that at all costs. And right now it's costing me money. And I'm hoping the idea would be not rocking that boat eventually pays dividends for me in the future, because people can rely on the restaurant to be open every day. They know that to be true. But like I was saying, this is a unprecedented type time, and I need to get as creative as possible to look out for the business number one, because if I look out for the business number one, the employees get looked after and everybody's happy. So we'll see where that ends up happening.
Yeah, well, that was terrific to kind of hear everything that you've thought through and gone through, doing the math on closing, a day, and that's a big hit to the top line, and that trails down to the bottom line, of course, too. So, we'll all hope that the legislation and our government finds and helps our businesses to be able to operate again more profitably by making some changes. But I don't suppose you and I can fix that on our own. So we just have to wait and see and pivot as needed to try to maintain profitability. And hey, let me switch gears again and ask you about the training component of the business, because you said you got 100 employees per location.
Yep.
So that's a lot of people. Are you doing anything in particular related to training, or how do you handle training at Le Papagayo?
Yeah, so training is an interesting piece. I've done a lot of different things depending on the position. So any manager that's being hired, I will be with for at least one full week, where I'm trying to expel as much knowledge upon them about the concept as possible. So once I've identified the appropriate individual to begin work, I have kind of a small book of just large bullet points that I will just kind of work through with them, so they understand the nuts and bolts of the business, what's got us to this point, what's made us successful for 2 decades, which is really difficult to come by in this industry. So what did we do differently? What type of culture do we have here that's afforded us the opportunity to serve the areas that we do, and what makes us tick? And so that's where I focus most of my attention and my energy as far as the training goes. And then I've identified lead servers for my AM crew, my PM crew. And they're the ones that are solely responsible for training any new service member that comes on board. They'll work with them side by side for at least 3 shifts, depending on experience level. And then we let them loose. I do not have a really regimented, strict training protocol, because I do not have a really detailed, specific niche group that I work through. I'm a restaurant for everybody. Mm-hmm. You can come in and you could be a group of 10, 18-year-old girls celebrating their 18th birthday. And then you could also be in your 70s coming in and celebrating your 50th wedding anniversary.
Right.
And everything in between. I have something for everyone. And so because of that, I don't have a real strict steps of service for my staff. I want them to be able to have the flexibility depending on the group that's coming in to enjoy the restaurant. You need to be able to mold to that. How you handle that 18-year-old group of girls is going to be different than how you handle that couple in their mid-70s. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be able to have the flexibility to work on those tables depending on what the customer is demanding, not based on how I'm going to train you or what I'm telling you need to be saying to the table, on the first approach or on the 4th approach or 2 minutes after they get their food. None of that. So I've got a bone structure, I've got this, mm-hmm. I've got this outline, but it's not very detailed. And I'm in a lucky enough position with my restaurants. I'm busy enough at these locations to demand the most tenured, the most seasoned servers. And so for the most part, I'm telling them, look, you guys, rely on your experience in the industry. Learn the menu. I've got a menu test. I do all of those things to make sure that they are knowledgeable. But as far as the structure goes, once that's in place, it's let your personality shine. This is not, I don't want this to be and this is just an example, no knock on TGI Fridays, but I don't want this to be a big corporate TGI Fridays type of thing where they're wearing buttons and they've got name tags and they've got these suspenders. That's not the idea. The idea is be you. Let that personality shine, have those discussions, start to get to know your tables, figure out if they've been there, if this is their first time and what brings them to the area, all of those sort of things. That's what makes us different. And so rely on that. And so that's where the training is kind of based. And then it leaks out into, the rest of the staff. And we go from there. And then the kitchen is a lot more regiment. It's a lot more specific. And I leave that up to my corporate chef. He kind of handles all of that. So, yeah.
Well, you can't do it all yourself. So you've got to become a delegator at some point.
That's for sure.
Or maybe the right word is enabler.
Yeah.
From a leadership perspective, you've it sounds like you've done a great job at identifying, leadership components, within the organization, and then you're allowing them to really be themselves and to do their thing, what they're best at. in order to ensure that you're upholding, the levels of quality and service delivery that everyone knows you for.
Yeah.
So, I think that's, that again is a great way to do it. And you don't necessarily, I think in talking to a lot of different restaurant owners, a stringent training program and protocol and all those kind of things, you see it sometimes, but it's definitely not the norm.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you got some great advice there. And for any of our listeners who got a large number of employees, you've got to develop and you got to select and then develop those people with the leadership potential and leadership qualities in order to take something off your plate and let you focus on what you do. So that's very impressive. How about another location? I know right now with staffing and food costs, it may not be on the front end of your choices, but are you thinking about that yet, or kind of what's the
so
future?
I opened up my second location, my second La Papagayo in Carlsbad in February, and so that has taken up the 90% of my time right now. I'm still getting through. I mean, I'm working my 70, 80 hours a week again, trying to keep this restaurant rolling. And as much as the community has accepted us and we're putting up ridiculous sales numbers, I mean, it's been amazing up there. But it is a whole different thing than I've ever experienced getting this restaurant rolling, because the main thing that I've learned is, I was spoiled might not be the right term, but in a sense I was with the staff that I was able to walk into by purchasing the Lucadia location, the Encinitas location. They were already tenured. I had half of that staff had been there for more than a decade. And so you've got so much built-in knowledge, so much built-in reliability that I was able to get to a point where I could just focus on the fun stuff, the stuff that I wanted to focus on, getting the cocktail list updated, the menus updated, doing the fun stuff. Well, building up a new restaurant, kind of from scratch, having to hire 100 new people, having to hire and train all of them, was something I had never done before. And so getting through that, I learned a ton, and I'm still working my way through that. So right now, I've probably got my guess would be somewhere around 6 months before I'm feeling confident to be able to start pulling back a little bit from that location to start working on other things. Now, I do have the other thing identified. I purchased a sports bar in downtown Encinitas about maybe 2.5 or 3 years ago now. It's an existing sports bar. It's currently operating. It's breaking even, and it's fun to operate. I played baseball in college, so I've got a little bit of a sport background that I've enjoyed operating that. I've got a strong manager over there who kind of takes the reins. And the plan there, I've got a full remodel, stripping it down to the studs, rebuilding it, completely changing the concept. I've got those plans done and approved through the city. I'm just waiting on my timing. And as soon as I'm ready to go, that's the next move. That concept will more than likely be something similar to La Papagayo, but I believe it's a little bit too close to the Lucadia location. And I'm working on the concept actively. I'm looking at something like an elevated sports bar, maybe something with like more of a Mexican cuisine type twist to it. Just because we're so close to Mexico and Mexican food in this area is just so popular. I want to do something maybe a little bit more elevated, a little bit more elegant, but something similar to the Papagayo, where you can come in and do a date night, but you could also come in with a couple buddies and get some beers and watch some sports and have the same type of experience. So that's the next move. I'm hoping for something maybe started next year, breaking ground. Probably quickest I could do it would probably be that. So that's where my eyes are set right now.
Yeah, well, sounds like you've got a plate full, Darrin.
Yes, sir. No pun intended. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
exactly. A plate full and a whole pile of drinks lined up on the bar that you got to chug.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
Gosh,
fancy.
you definitely you're doing things right, and that the whole sports bar, downtown sports bar piece sounds really fun and exciting, and I can tell it kind of gets your blood pumping, when you're in this creative zone, and
That's for sure.
I guess it just kind of gives you something to live for and to reach for, and let me ask you this, and I
Mhm.
probably need to get close to wrapping up, but as we move toward that, how do you know, or how do you gauge when is the proper time to make a move like that, to add a location or to start a new concept? And I know timing for you, maybe because you don't have the bandwidth just now, and you gotta kind of stretch it out. But
Yeah.
how do you make that decision? Is it all financial? Is it
Well,
heart?
so yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So so it's called Beachside Bar and Grill is my third location, that sports bar I've been mentioning.
Mhm.
That location I had identified early on when I first bought La Papagayo and Encinitas, because the location is incredible. It's right in the heart of downtown Encinitas. I mean, right in the middle. It's got two massive outdoor patios. It had two bars set up in it. It had a really it presented itself almost exactly like the Encinitas location,
Mhm.
where the bones of it were perfect. You just needed to come in and do the right things to it. And so it was attractive out the gate. And so once I got my feet underneath me at Encinitas, I knew the restaurant was kind of downtrodden. The ownership was not paying much attention to it at the time. And so I knew it was just a matter of time before that changed hands. One of my bartenders at La Papagayo, he also bartended at Beachside. And he told me one day, he said, "Hey, man, I overheard." He's like, "I know you're interested in that Beachside location. I overheard my owner, his name was Bill. He's like, I overheard Bill talking about how he's been looking to flip out." And I said, "Hey, Ben, I need you to do one thing. Next time you go in, give him my phone number, and I want you to ask him permission to give me his, and I need to make contact, because 100%, I don't even want him to list it on the market. I will give him fair market in a heartbeat. I'll take it off his hands." And literally one thing led to another. I was able to get in touch with him, and you know, long story short, and we took it over, and I went in there and did the same thing I did at Lucadia, where they didn't have as big of a local following, so I was able to take some more liberties on that menu, and just kind of got it operating where it was breaking even. And then the plan from the start was always to start getting plans developed to do a full scale remodel on the business. And that's what I've been working on. But really, how those come up is I identify the properties that I like first. So I'll look for the spots that I feel like are just like the Papagayo and Beachside, where they they're existing concepts that just need a little bit of attention, and they need somebody in there that's gonna give it the attention it deserves, and try my hand at it. And once I identify those, then it's my timing. Obviously, on my side financially, I got to make sure that's all lined up, and then I need to make sure I'm in a good spot with the restaurants. Now at this point, now that I've got three operating, for the fourth, those are going to have to be the things. So I'm going to have to be financially prepared. I'm going to have all three restaurants in a position where they can afford to not have me active for an extended period of time. And then once I'm there, I can get more aggressive. And as I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised, I've got a fourth location identified in Carlsbad right now.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's probably more like a 3-year plan at this point, I'd say,
Mhm.
but it's not an operating restaurant. It is a different concept right now, but I've talked to the ownership. They actually reached out to me. It's a historical site in Carlsbad, and they want to eventually turn that into a restaurant and a live music venue. And they approached me. So they know my timing, and it kind of lines up with how their lease is going to be ending up on their current tenant. and they want to kind of present me with a warm shell, if you will. So I'll have electricity, I'll have power, I'll have water, and all that kind of makes it necessary for me to be able to come in and kind of stamp it the way that I want to stamp it to make another La Papagayo out of it. So that's the vision right now. That's probably more like the 5-year plan. But that's kind of the process in identifying and then making sure that you're lined up on your side. Because look, timing as far as the financials go and the restaurants go, that's not necessarily the part. I can kind of work those out. So finding the opportunity is first and foremost. Making sure that you're comfortable with that opportunity is the number one thing. Once that's identified, then I try to back in the other pieces. I can always figure out the financial side of it. I can take a loan out against these restaurants. You can get creative with those things as much as you're confident and as much as you're willing to take risks. That's part of this business. That's part of business ownership. There has to be some inherent risk there, or everybody would do it. And so being comfortable with where you're at with that is number one. Once the property is identified, and then start putting the pieces together. The deal making is really what, beyond running the restaurant, the deal making is like my favorite thing. I love doing that. I love being able to get creative with these sellers. I love trying to identify these properties and make these deals work so I can breathe some more life into these communities and provide jobs for these guys. And it's incredibly rewarding once everything clicks. It really is.
That is an awesome story. I mean, again, you can hear the passion in your voice when it comes to everything that you're doing and being able to provide jobs and a living for, so many people, and just breathing back life into a space. It's really bigger than just having a restaurant.
That's for sure.
And I think that those of you all in the restaurant owner space, or restaurateurs, as we often say, typically have a lot of passion, and the numbers are critical, obviously, but it's the fun part that really keeps you going and keeps you ticking. And I'm happy for you guys that you guys have done so well. I love the fact that this goes back to the old school stuff of setting goals and
Sure.
short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. And though they're not always written down like we were taught to do, you've got a plan, and you've got a master plan in your head. So that's all that matters. And you've got your dad that you can reach out to and get some great advice, I'm sure, and
Yes, sir.
and
Yes,
help
sir.
with the businesses. So congratulations for all you've done there, and it's really an amazing story.
I appreciate that, Jeff. It's been a fun ride, man, and I'm looking for more success years to come. And like you were hitting on, I think the number one thing with the passion with these restaurants is they take up so much time. You have to be willing to do that, and the only way you're going to be willing to do that and effectively is if you have a passion for it. And so that's why, number one, you have to have a passion for the industry. You have to love, concept design and coming up with new ideas with bars and always evolving, staying ahead of trends and being involved with that. That's number one. And you spend so much time there, these employees become family. And so understanding how to treat them, and identifying the people that want to move up, the people that want to just clock in and clock out, the people that are just there for a paycheck, and everything in between, and being able to have those relationships with them and grow with them throughout their lives, is hugely important. And recognizing those things, if you have that ground level built out and you can focus there, the rest of the stuff becomes a lot easier.
Well put. And that was some great final advice too for all of our listeners who are starting a project, getting close to ending one project and maybe beginning another, or even launching their first business. So I think they're really going to enjoy listening to this episode, Darrin, and I'm really thankful to have had the opportunity to get to know you and learn more about your story. And thank you for sharing it with us today.
No problem, Jeff. I really appreciate you reaching out. I've had a great time.
Hey, again, just for one more plug here, if you're in California and you're looking for some beach, some food, some drink. Le Papagayo is the place to go. And we've also got, what was it, Beachside?
Yeah, Beachside.
I just lost my note. I had typed it while we were talking.
No, Beachside. That's it.
Yeah, Beachside Bar and Grill as well. Please go out and support all the great people of these restaurants. And again, we've got Darrin Campbell, who's the owner, on with us today. And again, thank you for your time. And for all of our listeners who are tuning in, we hope that you'll come back for the next episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. And I'm your host, Jeff Johnson, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.